The final race before the summer break has concluded, and now begins the long wait until the next Grand Prix, leaving all F1 fans craving for more action. We were fortunate to witness all 44 laps of the Belgian Grand Prix, a race that turned out to be disappointing for Oscar Piastri. Right from the start, his unfortunate incident on Turn 1, sandwiched between Carlos Sainz and a hard barrier, ended his race prematurely. Oscar handled the incident with relative composure, but Carlos Sainz was not pleased with what happened. We're eager to hear from both drivers about their perspectives on the incident and who they believe was at fault. Oscar Piastri has truly made an impact since joining the F1 grid at the beginning of the season. Despite the initial challenges with the MCL60 car, he managed to score points in his third race and has consistently fought for points in subsequent races, especially after McLaren upgraded his car. What sets Oscar apart is his skillful driving without resorting to overly aggressive tactics that some inexperienced drivers might display. He has impressed fans not only with his on-track performances but also with his positive and down-to-earth personality. In interviews, Oscar comes across as mature and wise beyond his years, displaying a deep understanding of Formula One racing. Unlike some others who might blame external factors, he takes responsibility for his actions. Moreover, his friendly and genuine demeanor has won him a considerable fan following. The incident at the Belgian Grand Prix was heartbreaking for all. As Oscar attempted to make a move on the inside of Carlos Sainz at Turn 1, the situation quickly escalated. With Hamilton also trying to defend his position from the outside, Sainz had to react quickly, causing him to collide with Oscar's car, leading to significant damage and ending Piastri's race. The McLaren was squeezed against the inside wall, damaging its steering, while the Ferrari's right side pod was ripped open. Despite his best efforts, Oscar's car could not continue and he had to stop later during the lap. The incident was a series of unfortunate events, with the drivers' maneuvers intertwining in a way that resulted in the collision. Now, as we anxiously wait for the next Grand Prix after the summer break, we hope to see Oscar Piastri back on track, continuing to demonstrate his talent and sportsmanship. His performance so far proves that he is a driver worth watching, and he has a bright future ahead in Formula One. I don't understand what he was thinking. I was right there and he turned in as if I didn't even exist. Despite the incident, the stewards chose not to take any action. Sainz believed the rookie should have yielded, especially considering he was in a battle with Mercedes driver Lewis Hamilton. According to him, he had executed the move cleanly into Turn 1, hitting the apex perfectly. However, he felt that Oscar was attempting an overly optimistic move on him, which ultimately led to the collision. It was unfortunate because Turn 1 in Spa has a history of incidents, particularly when drivers try to make a move on the inside and go around the corner. Ironically, Carlos was also trying the inside line into Turn 1, and it did lead to an incident. Upon reviewing the replay, it seemed that Sainz went too deep into the corner, necessitating him to brake to avoid hitting the back of Hamilton's Mercedes. While he denied going deep, he admitted to locking up but insisted he made the apex correctly and successfully passed Lewis. Carlos acknowledged he was aware that Piastri was on the inside but believed that someone needed to back off at some point. He asserted that it should have been Piastri, who was alongside his rear right, and he should have yielded and let Carlos complete his move with Lewis. He also pointed out that under normal circumstances on any other corner or lap, Carlos might have been penalized for moving under braking and causing a collision. However, lap 1 at Turn 1 can be intense, and allowances are sometimes made for the heated moments, which might explain why no penalty was given to Sainz considering the circumstances. The collision caused damage to Sainz's side pod, resulting in a 5% loss of aero performance. Despite Ferrari's insistence for him to stay out for half of the race, he eventually had to retire. Sainz was critical of the incident, attributing blame to Piastri's inexperience and labeling it as the rookie's mistake. In my opinion, having raced in Spa for several years, I've observed that anyone attempting such a move on the very inside typically ends up in an incident or crash. It's been the norm in previous starts here. It could be seen as an inexperienced error, but that's how things go. Personally, I didn't expect him to be there. I did catch a glimpse of him at one point, right by the wall, but my focus was more on my battle with Lewis. I didn't miss the apex or make any mistakes. I went to attack Lewis, and Oscar went to attack both Lewis and me. From my perspective, it was a rather optimistic move on his part. So, Carlos made his move to the right around Lewis, assuming Piastri would back off and stay on his own line. Sainz's move was executed so late that Piastri had no opportunity to back out. As with many Turn 1 incidents, both drivers could have taken different actions to avoid the collision. Carlos could have adhered to his original line instead of making a late move under braking, while Oscar could have anticipated that someone might try to move toward the apex rather than the outside of the corner and pulled out of his move earlier. Piastri acknowledged that the incident fell squarely into the category of a typical Lap 1 Turn 1 incident. However, he expressed disappointment, especially after his podium finish in the sprint race on Saturday, where he secured second place behind Max Verstappen. Describing the incident, Oscar explained that he had a good start, getting his nose alongside Carlos. When they reached the braking zone, Carlos moved slightly to the right and locked up, forcing Oscar to take evasive action. In the tight space from that point to the apex, Piastri's options were limited, leaving him with few alternatives. He admitted that he would review the situation to see if there was more he could have done differently. Nonetheless, he regretted not still being on the track and competing. Piastri acknowledged that both drivers could have approached the situation differently given the challenging Turn 1. Despite the disappointing outcome, the McLaren rookie demonstrated maturity by avoiding placing blame on Carlos for the incident. The collision marked the end of a standout weekend for Piastri, who had led his first laps in Formula 1 during the Saturday sprint and started in the top 5 on Sunday. Following the race, McLaren team principal Andrea Stella confirmed the extent of the damage to Piastri's car, noting that the steering system was broken. While Stella had not fully examined the extent of the damage, he suggested that Carlos may not have been aware of Oscar's presence or might have been trying to avoid the car ahead, resulting in the collision with Oscar against a wall. Moving past the question of fault for the incident, both drivers experienced a disappointing end to their races. Charles Leclerc demonstrated the pace of the Ferrari in Belgium by securing a podium finish for the third time in the season, an achievement that Carlos has yet to match. Despite consistently finishing in the points this season, Carlos has yet to deliver a standout performance that would cement him as a top driver. For Piastri, this race represented an opportunity to impress after an impressive sprint, particularly since he started ahead of his teammate. With hindsight, it became clear that the McLaren, configured with a significant amount of downforce in preparation for wet conditions, lacked the pace to compete at the front of the grid. Nevertheless, it could have been Oscar's 5th points finish of the season and his 4th classification ahead of his teammate. It is evident that there is more to come from the talented Australian driver. Now, the question remains, who was at fault for the Turn 1 incident? Was Sainz justified in blaming Piastri? Share your opinions in the comments below. We're eager to engage in discussions with you. Be sure to subscribe to our channel to stay updated on future uploads and remain informed about the developments in the 2023 Formula 1 season.